Welcome back to Killer Fun, where we explore the intersection of crime and entertainment every other week. I'm Christy.
And I'm Jackie.
And we're so glad that you're back with us today. Today, we are covering something that we haven't covered before-ish. So we've talked about the staircase before, way back in like January of 2019. We talked about the documentary, maybe in quotes a little bit.
Yeah, that term comes out like docu-series.
Yeah,
and we
there
kind of
you go.
know that it's a researched account of many things, but with some liberty.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. They were paying a lot of attention to story. But today we're talking about HBO's fictionalized version of the same story, and we'd like to say rest in peace, Kathleen Peterson, and we all wish we knew the relationship you had with Michael a little better.
Agreed.
Because, I mean, that is really at the crux of all of this, is that we don't know what their relationship was really like. How much, if we knew better, it might explain things. We might either be able to say Michael's story of Kathleen knowing certain things about him was accurate or not, and it might sway one way or another our opinions.
Right.
So
we just don't know.
Right.
We just don't know. And maybe we just don't know what we don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and I mean, and there's, I think, no way for us to know. But
no, because isn't that the truth though? We never know. We never know behind the closed doors of a marriage,
right,
or a committed relationship of sorts, what's really going on.
Right.
And then we only get the two stories.
Well, and really we only get one story. I mean, we only get one story. Actually, we get a dozen stories, because we get Michael's story, right, and we get all the people around them's story, but we don't get hers.
We don't get hers.
She's not available to share.
No.
So, yeah. Well, this cast.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. They threw everything at this cast.
Yes,
let me just say it shows. So, Colin Firth, Mr. Darcy, Michael Peterson, Toni Collette, who we've talked about lots and lots, is Kathleen. Michael Stuhlberg is David Rudolph, and he was great in Your Honor and Dope Sick, and he's often a like a mob sort of character.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, he plays David Rudolph, and David Rudolph says he doesn't see the resemblance, which made me laugh out loud. Because I'm like, he looks just like you in this. So much like him.
Oh, talk about a lack of self-reflection.
I mean, has he not seen a mirror?
I mean,
because I don't know that he could have been cast better. But
we all hold versions of ourselves.
I mean,
you know.
Right. Patrick Schwarzenegger is Todd, and he is the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver. So,
and he does a great job.
And I think he does a really good job. He's very talented. Sophie Turner of Game of Thrones fame is Margaret Ratliff, and the lovely Parker Posey is Freda Black. And I realized, I went back and re-listened to our episode from 2019 please forgive the audio quality on that. We hadn't upgraded our microphone situation yet.
We were raw.
Yeah,
we were just
that's
raw.
Right. And you hear it and you're like, oh, this sounds awful. And let me tell you, 4 minutes in, you get used to it. It's fine.
That's what podcasting does. I mean,
that's right.
You can kind of come at it anyway. I'm all about some lo-fi here and there.
Yeah. Well, it was lo-fi, but I thought the discussion was good though.
It was a good discussion.
Anyway, my whole point of that was I called her Frida in that episode, and it's Freda. It's Fred with an A, Freda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, named after her dad.
Makes sense.
So, and she's, cult heroine from Dazed and Confused and Tales of the City and Best in Show and much, much more. She's delightful. And I love her very fun Southern accent in this. It's like really transforms her into Freda. All right, recap.
Okay, go for it. Recap it.
This is the story heralded really as the nexus of the modern true crime obsession that particularly women seem to have. Like this, we've always kind of been interested in it, but this is the docuseries that kind of made it more than a 40-minute, news type show.
Got it.
Yeah.
It kind of pushed it into
it pushed it
new era.
Yeah, exactly. So we have 3 distinct timelines in this episode and throughout what's out of the series so far. Is we know from the start that somehow Michael Peterson is free in the late 20-teens.
Right.
Whatever comes next, we know that he's not in prison at that point. He's putting on the tie with the help of a woman. He's not in jail. Then there's the timeline before the incident.
Right, like a little bit of a lead up.
That's right. So we get what appears to be an unusual but relatively happy family with some of the normal stressors like money and sibling jealousy, dealing with the empty nest for the first time, insecure employment, normal sorts of life stressors.
Yes, blended family.
Yeah, yes, a really unusual family. And then we get the after the death, 911 calls, police investigations, attorneys engaged, allegiances defined, secrets exposed, which we get a little of that in the lead up timeline.
Yeah.
Like we become aware of them, but it becomes a problem when other people become aware of certain secrets. So what we don't know with any certainty is what happened to cause Kathleen's death. And that's something that even over 20 years later, we really can't get definitive answers to. So
it's a heck of a lot. I distinctly remember we talked a lot about spatter.
Yes, we did.
We talked a lot about blood spatter and what it can tell us, what it can't, and how the science is a little... And we talked about that in multiple episodes, but in this case, it really mattered. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And I remember a lot with the autopsy and that different opinions about what was possible.
And that they had the same... They insisted that the same medical examiner do autopsies on both women, which was interesting.
Yeah.
But it was a whole... Yeah, I mean, I have opinions about the way things were handled. Ultimately, there's nothing that can really be done about it at this point.
No.
So, but it's been really well received thus far.
Has it?
As of May the 19th. Critic average is 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience score is 82%.
I'm floored.
Are you? Are you surprised that people like it this well?
Yes, because it was so painfully boring.
What? You thought it was boring?
I couldn't stand it. Usually I just keep watching as long as I have time,
right?
And it was in the evening, but usually when we do these episode things, I'll at least get pulled into a second wind and watch the second or third episode or whatever.
And you were done after the first one?
I was so done. I was so bored.
See, and I'm riveted.
I was amazed how bored I was.
Wow.
I don't know what it is about it that makes me, I don't know.
I thought the multiple timelines kept it moving.
I mean, it moved. It just wasn't, I didn't find it entertaining.
Oh, really?
The story moved. I learned things. I wasn't at all entertained. I didn't start to root for anyone.
Really?
I was like, Colin Firth is amazing. Right? He's amazing. Amazingly boring. He's a boring character. He plays it's not his fault.
Well,
the character is dull.
That's fair.
And so
that's fair. Michael Peterson's not a particularly engaging. I find myself enjoying the story around him more than his character, even though Colin Firth did do an amazing job.
He did. He nailed it. He nailed exactly how dull Michael Peterson is.
Well, see, and Frank Avila of Edge Media Network said exactly that. Colin Firth, who has played gay numerous times before, has never been so simultaneously sexy and scary. But I don't really find him very scary. I think
I don't find him really sexy.
Well, I mean, in that Colin Firth is...
Colin Firth,
adorable,
sure. But I mean, the way he plays and the
yeah.
No, not at all.
I see it in like party scenes. I could kind of see it where they were having this like jovial sort of time when they're having the empty nest party, you know, and he's kind of teasing Kathleen.
And I was like, oh, he's so passive aggressive.
Well,
and I'm like, buzzkill.
And it came across as more endearing sort of patter to me.
Oh, see, like when she came up and started talking and saying stuff, he kind of made a comment, and I felt like it was a passive-aggressive comment about her drinking.
Oh, well, it was.
Right? And that's like a total buzzkill. Like, and now I hate you.
Oh.
I am particularly sensitive to snide remarks like that.
Okay.
I'm particularly like angered by them, so it's a pet peeve.
Oh, okay.
So this is a me issue. I don't necessarily let that slide very easily.
Okay.
She just turned around and jumped in the pool.
Right.
She's used to it.
And then hurt herself.
And all of that. But like, as soon as he did that, I was like, oh, I hate you. You're a murderer now. Like, I go there. That was probably the most exciting scene.
Okay.
Because I was pulled into it by my hatred. But yeah, I was surprised. I thought it was so boring because I was expecting to just love it.
Oh, see, and I felt like it was less boring than the original.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, I guess I never found Michael Peterson particularly attractive.
No.
And so I find it easier to watch Colin Firth's portrayal.
That's fair. Yeah, I could see that.
Because I know he's being an actor, so all his disingenuous stuff, like he acts it very well, but I can also kind of like separate him a little bit. Like,
yeah, you know what it is? I thought the docuseries was sort of boring too, but at least it was what it was.
Okay. That's
right.
fair.
Like I was following a story, and because it was in that documentary style, I was able to be like, well, entertainment value is actually is the story.
Right.
And so I was able to like at least be roped in.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But this, I was like, wow.
Yeah, not so much.
Oh man.
AARP movies. Thought it was addictively good, and the Firth version is even better. And
wow.
I mean, it won a Peabody Award, the original. I mean,
I know.
It wasn't like it was award winning and all this stuff. But I find myself enjoying this version of it more than the
that makes sense. I mean, version. IMDb is 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think they tend to be a little more. Well, that's close to the 80%. I mean, it's like 75%.
So, I mean, I get why people like it. I guess I can say I get why people like it, but it just...
Yeah, not so much for you.
Not so much, but okay. I am interested enough to know how they tell the story with the information as we see it now.
Okay.
Maybe, even though it's fictionalized, I am interested enough in the story itself. I'm interested to see if it gets more riveting for me.
Okay.
As they keep going.
As you move on to subsequent episodes. Well, I do have to say they do more than one death scene for Kathleen. I've seen 2 so far, and I think there's a 3rd coming up in an episode that's yet to be released. That where they show different scenarios.
See, and I kind of like that.
And I thought that was really interesting and good.
Okay, see, and that will pull me forward.
Yeah. I can't remember when the first one happens. It might be the 2nd or 3rd episode.
This might be something I can like set up on my iPad.
Yes. And then be doing kind of other things. Yes. Mm-hmm. It'll work well for that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And Decider can't seem to decide. So they have a couple of articles. Why does the staircase on HBO Max exist by Kayla Cobb? It is impossible to watch The Staircase without wondering why. Yes, it is very well directed and wonderfully acted, and yet there's a hollowness that accompanies even the best performances in this limited series.
This is my mantra right here for this.
Yeah. And then The Staircase avoids most introspective questions to instead focus on a case we know painfully well. The result is crime solely for entertainment's sake, which I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of fair.
Oh my gosh, that may be the piece of the puzzle I'm missing.
Yeah.
Is that I'm watching this as a fictionalized version thinking I'm going to know the characters better.
Right.
And they're just in the first episode.
Right.
It's still a very two-dimensional,
very surface level.
Yeah.
These are the facts, ma'am, sort of situation. Yeah. Well, despite that, Mark Graham did a shorter watch or don't watch, what to watch thing about the staircase. My esteemed colleague Kayla Cobb makes some excellent points in her essay about the pointlessness of this series, but speaking solely from the perspective of someone who assiduously avoids true crime documentaries, docuseries, but is a total sucker for riveting television, I say watch The Staircase.
Wow.
So maybe it's more exciting if you don't already know the story.
I would think so. But if you're going to make a story about something that is so embedded into a movement of true crime, maybe you ought to take that into account.
Yeah, maybe we need to have either a little more fictionalization to give the characters more depth, but that's tricky because you don't want to fictionalize it too much, though that's exactly what the original filmmakers of the docuseries felt betrayed by HBO Max's situation. So Vanity Fair had a whole article about this. And Jean-Xavier Lestrade was the original filmmaker of this. Mm-hmm. And he's listed as an executive producer.
Yeah, he is.
Has known Antonio Campos, who's the filmmaker making this fictionalized version of it, and Dave Lestrade's listed as a executive producer on this.
Yeah,
because he gave Antonio a lot of access to unused footage and things for him to use as reference material for this.
Okay.
The episode that just came out on May 19th is the 5th in the 8-part limited series, and there's, I guess, some fictionalization that happens there amongst the French filmmakers that is what he really feels betrayed by. So I mean, maybe it's easier for him to see the subjects of his docuseries fictionalized than it is for him to see himself fictionalized.
Well, I'm certain.
I'm
certain that feels weird.
Yeah.
And I can understand his position on it, but you can think they did a bad job, and betrayed is an interesting word.
Yeah. Well, I guess because they'd had such a long history, these two filmmakers doing different things had such a long history to feel like he's being portrayed in a way that's less accurate in his own view.
Well, but he is a documentarian.
Yes.
So that he's going to lean towards that way.
Right.
Which is why the original Staircase, his Staircase, was so good.
Right.
Because I felt like you're always going to have bias. You're always going to, but documentarians really care about presenting the story as it unfolds authentically as best they can. They care about that.
Right.
They care. They're not trying. Most of them are not trying to push an end unless they see that there's an advocacy that's needed from it.
Right.
Like for instance, there's some out there that are like, obviously they're trying to change how we do pharmaceuticals, right?
Right.
But it's not that they told the story inaccurately. They have explained their bias from the beginning based on the advocacy they see needed,
right,
because of the facts in front of them,
right.
So it's always an authentic expression, whether it's right or wrong. It's always an authentic version of the truth, if that makes sense, in their opinion,
right?
The story, and it's maybe just one story,
right,
of many,
right. That's fair.
Whereas HBO is going to make a story, and things are going to cut and hit the floor, and that's it. Or they're going to have to change it in order to make the larger story work, and that's just not how a documentarian works.
Well, and I think that's why he feels betrayed, is because in that 5th episode, there is a discussion about what's going to be included, and there's bias in a way that he feels is unfair. Like there was bias of what they were going to include and not include. Well, that makes him look guilty. Well, that makes him look not guilty. We need to not give an opinion on this.
Right.
But they argue over it. And so he's saying that there wasn't arguments. And so he feels really betrayed.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry. I'm just kind of like, you know, it's a fictionalized version. So you're going to have to.
Well, yes. Well, in this article, it says the original Staircase team worries that audiences seeing the fictionalized show will assume that the filmmaker storyline is entirely accurate, especially given the series does not open with a title card clarifying that HBO Max's show is merely inspired by the original documentary. There is an end card clarifying that the series is a dramatization, but is not seen until after the full credits.
Okay. All right. Okay. I apologize for my previous comments.
Okay.
I understand now.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't get it before, but I understand now why the betrayal, why he feels that way, because I see what he means. He's worried.
Yeah, he wants it beforehand, not after.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Because he's worried that people will assume or get the wrong impression about how they made the document or the docuseries, and that his original series will be viewed differently.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
No, I see that now.
Yeah.
I see that now.
Okay.
All right, sorry.
Yeah,
I apologize.
no,
I'm on your side now.
I get it, but I also kind of get that some of the betrayal comes from he doesn't like the way he's being portrayed, and that I'm like, you have to get over that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm certain that's true, but I see how it affects his career.
Right. Right.
Like they're
it's fair to ask for a title card in the beginning.
Yeah, that is a fair solution because he's still active, and he doesn't want audiences to have a false impression of how he approaches things based on a fictionalization.
Right.
That maybe like this is why sometimes it's like too soon.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
And why actors have certain clauses about who can betray them or betray them. Who can portray them. Uh-huh. And when, because if it's too soon, it can actually affect your career. Mm-hmm. I see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, we have lots more to cover.
Yeah,
but
we do. And I'm just on a rabbit trail.
No, that's
today.
fine. We're going to talk about Is It True? Psychology Break in Real Life after this.
So here's how it works. Christy wrecks her search history. Hey, an essay. We promise it's nothing more nefarious than a podcast. To find out what's true, some of the psychological motivations behind the characters' actions, and real-life applications that relate to our topic. I have no idea what Christy decided to look up. Could be the same thing that captured my curiosity or something I never thought of.
Is it true?
Hit me.
So this family is complex.
Okay, yeah, help me. Okay. I don't, you know what? I don't know if I'm surprised or not because I'm confused.
Okay, well, it's large and layered. So let's talk about it, particularly the kids, because I think that's where it gets the most confusing. So there's Caitlin Atwater, and she's Kathleen's biological daughter from her first marriage. Okay.
I think I got that.
And she was the one who was upset that they were having a going away party for the youngest kid.
Right.
Yeah. She was like, you never had a party when I went to school, which I think tells you a fair bit about the relationship between the kids and what they're trying to help you understand.
Yes.
Is there's some jealousy there. So Clayton and Todd, the two boys, they're Clayton and Todd Peterson, and they're Michael's biological children from his first marriage.
Okay.
Patty, who supported him.
Right.
But I guess they ended their relationship on relatively good terms. It's made known that she knew of his secrets while they were married. And so it was not a surprise to her. She has since passed away. And I guess Todd Peterson blames his dad she had a heart attack, and he said his dad was with her and didn't call the cops soon enough. But it's in the middle of this irate video that I'll post on social media. Of him deciding that his dad is guilty after it's a whole thing.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Anyway, that is interesting.
Yeah. So, and then there's Margaret and Martha Ratliff.
Okay. Yes.
Whom Michael adopted.
Okay.
So when he lived in Germany, they lived next door to a widow.
Okay.
Who had these two children.
See, that's coming back to me a little bit.
And then she fell down the stairs.
That's right.
Died, which a second a woman in his life who fell down the stairs and died.
Right. Now, I do remember that from the original one, but it looked confusing. I couldn't tell who was who.
Well, and that's because they didn't do a very good job of it and helping you understand that. Not in the first episode, and really, I guess you understand it later, but it helped to already know this stuff.
Yeah.
So they're adopted children, biological children, and a blended family. And so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's coming back to me a little bit. I remember that they adopted, and I remember that's where the story of the original staircase situation
was.
Was.
But I always wondered why the girls kept their original last name. Why weren't they Peterson if they were adopted?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know either. That's the most confusing part of the family. Okay. Now, Kathleen had 2 sisters.
Right.
Michael has at least 1 brother. Mm-hmm. Early on, we see before they have a dinner, they're trying to call people for dinner. And Todd Peterson is talking about his website.
Yeah.
They're going to bully kids into buying back to school stuff.
Right.
So I was like, really? And we see it briefly on the screen. It was Futazi, Futazi.com.
Okay.
It was a real website.
It really was?
It really was.
Oh.
Futazi.com really was a thing.
Oh, I am surprised. I thought that was fake.
No, it was real, and that was the name of it, and the domain is up for sale now, so he's not running it any longer. From the Durham Herald Sun, Futazi.com, which offered tips to high schoolers on kissing, sex, drunk friends, and makeup. While Todd said the website was to provide advice to teens like his sisters, some said the content and photos of scantily dressed girls was inappropriate for that age group.
Ooh, it is. I did not understand what was happening here with this website. Oh, wow.
Yeah, they didn't explain it well. He does talk about, I've run a very successful website later on, but it all seemed pretty sketchy. Oh. And I guess he had worked at Nortel Networks which was who employed Kathleen for a brief while, and then left that, or was asked to leave, it's unclear, and started this website.
Okay. Oh, that's weird. That's creepy. It's just creepy.
It is creepy.
Don't go to that website. I'm glad it's for sale, but if there's one like it.
Well, and I even tried to look up on the Wayback Machine to see if you could see what it looked like. And but it was all login. You had to log in and be a member to really see the stuff. So there's not a good record of, because I was just curious what it was really like. Were the pictures really that bad? Ooh, I don't know.
We
can't tell. It's better that it's gone. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Yeah. The family is having the dinner, and they pass around the loving cup.
Yes, this loving cup was very interesting.
And it's not specific to the Peterson family. He made it sound like, his dad and his brother, came up with this.
Yeah, it felt to me more like just we're talking about, our tradition. Others may have it.
But the loving cup is a tradition that can be found in particularly European cultures, Celtic, French, particularly. But it's just a shared drinking container used at weddings and banquets, which I guess this kind of counted as a banquet since it was a big family dinner.
Yeah, I guess so. I kind of, I don't know how you felt about it. I actually, when I saw that, I thought, well, I like that idea.
I think it's fine.
I like the idea of it being at family dinner, on a regular basis, and having more of a opportunity to officially cheers someone and but on the other hand, I could see how it would be very easy to leave someone out. So
yes.
I could see the parents in the room would have to really be the parents in the room.
And they seemed like they weren't always really very good
they
at
would
that.
need to think about and look at okay, who's left out, and let's
right. Well, because Caitlin specifically has to say, and Atwater.
Right.
She's already feeling left out because they didn't have a similar sort of party for her. And then her name gets left out. And so she feels very marginalized.
Yeah, to me, it was like she hasn't adopted herself into the family either.
That's fair.
Because it's fine that you keep your original name in a blended family, but it doesn't mean you're not part of that family and that family.
Right.
So
yeah,
even if you don't officially hyphenate or whatever.
Right.
But it's still like, okay,
You're still part of the Peterson clan, even though your name is not. It's like the Scottish clans where, you didn't always have the same last name, but you could still be part of the clan and wear the tartan or whatever.
Right. And I mean, you can be both. You can be part of both families equally, but you can tell she has a wall up.
Right.
About that.
Yeah. At least in this version of the story. So Kathleen, probably right to be worried about her job security.
Ooh.
Because Nortel Network, now this article is very old. It's from Wired from October of 2001. Ooh. So prior to Kathleen's death, the Nortel telecom equipment maker announced a $3.6 billion third quarter loss. Ooh. And was cutting 20,000 jobs, selling off assets, and was reducing its workforce to 45,000 people by the end of 2001. And at the start of 2001, it had been about 95,000 people.
Wow, that's a big change.
It's a big, big change. So she was right to be concerned. Mm-hmm. There's a merger and they were worried about getting rid of redundancies and stuff like that. And Nortel did end up filing for bankruptcy in January of 2009. So a while later, but that she was probably concerned about her job. Pretty accurate, I would say.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It kind of looks like the coroner was right originally to say that the thyroid damage was inconclusive in its own right. So there was damage to her thyroid, and she said it could indicate strangulation, but isn't conclusive in its own right. So I was like, and then of course, like according to this version of the telling, the DA kind of pushed her into making a more definitive determination. But a superior thyroid carnu, which is what they talked about was the damage to her thyroid, can be congenital or acquired.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So you can have an ulceration of that that can be caused by injury, or the ulceration can just happen. That there is a whole case study about a man who went in and they called it no malignant process in this ResearchGate article that caused basically the same kind of issue. And he had a pain in his neck. He went to the doctor, hadn't had an injury that would have caused it. But when they did a inspection, they found this laceration on his thyroid. It can just happen sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
that's interesting.
She was right in the first place to say it wasn't conclusive.
Right. That's interesting. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah. Because I mean, not that I'm trying to say Michael Peterson is for sure innocent, but I do think that there were some things that maybe were handled inappropriately.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
There was some conjecture that was created as gospel.
Yeah.
And definitely, you're right. I don't know but I also know that falling downstairs is a weirdly catastrophic event. It's very chaotic, especially if you have like a railing and a little turn. And I did like how they showed the scene where she trips up the stairs because she's running, and that is an awkward little turn.
Yeah,
and how she kind of
it's narrow, it's awkward, it's a very steep.
So I mean,
that big old house. Come on, let's give the staircase a little bit more.
Right? Was that? Do we know? Was that the back staircase or was that
I think it was the back staircase.
I think it's the back staircase. Because a lot of times there's a lot of back staircases in larger houses and they're smaller.
Right. Yeah. But still, like it's a big house. Give it the space to make it safe for the love of all that's good and holy. So Michael was less than truthful about his military accolades when he was running for office. So, grunge.com has an article, The Truth About Michael Peterson's Military Past. He was a former Marine, as he claimed.
There are no former Marines.
He
was an active Marine. I don't really care, but I guess I know that they care.
Yes. I mean, Maybe they don't want to claim him anymore.
Yeah, maybe they don't want to claim him anymore. But that's all right. Then form a Marine.
Yeah, Semper Fi is usually a very, like, once a Marine, always a Marine.
Always a Marine. Yeah, yes. I know.
Yeah,
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
He claimed he got 2 Purple Hearts after suffering injuries in the Vietnam War, and that he was awarded a Bronze Star and a Silver Star with Valor for his time in combat, though there are no records of him being injured whatsoever in Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, he was severely injured when he was in Japan in a car accident that was part of his job. So his military record confirms that he received an honorable discharge and confirms, in fact, that he did receive a Silver and Bronze Star with Valor, but he never received the Purple Hearts. And he claims that he used those as a cover because he didn't want to talk about the accident in Japan. That he had to make up how he suffered his injuries because he was so bothered by whatever vehicular accident that happened in Japan that he didn't want to talk about it.
And he was on the job, right?
He was on the job,
and
somebody he was with did perish, and he didn't want to talk about that. But why inflate it? Because that's what he does.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's a lot of self-importance that's happening with that guy.
It's true.
Yeah,
that is. Ew.
I know, to lie about it. Just talk about this. You don't have to talk about a Purple Heart. You already can say the Bronze Star and the Silver Star with Valor.
Right.
Don't attribute them to Vietnam. Just say during my military career. You don't need to talk about all that. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, John McCain didn't talk about his
not at all, really.
No, I mean, his time being a prisoner of war, he said that it happened, but he didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
People let it go. If you're running for office and people are going to confirm this stuff, but it just speaks to his character, unfortunately.
It does.
Psychology break.
All right, let's do this. Hit me.
So we can't know for sure if Kathleen did or did not know about Michael's bisexuality. What we do know is that it's possible for people to have a satisfying, healthy, happy marriage with a bisexual husband.
Well, that would be the definition of bisexual, right?
Yeah.
I think the point that they were making was infidelity.
We're going to get there.
Oh, okay. All right. Take me there.
The firstmarriage.com has this article about living with a bisexual husband. Mm-hmm. And this is generally your spouse has just informed you that they're bisexual. So they said, take a step back and relax. May or may not hurt your marriage, but the spouse who is not bisexual, who has just learned of this, is not at fault in this situation. They shouldn't feel like it's their fault that their spouse is bisexual. Talk to him, them, your partner. Your husband just revealed that he's bisexual. And if you criticize him for being different, he may not be honest with you. So they're trying to be a little more open. It may be painful, but try not to be too critical of it. Be as honest and accepting as you can be. But that does not mean you should be highly careless about your husband cheating on you. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's cheating. Just because someone is bisexual doesn't make them immoral or sneaky.
Right.
Just because they've had a secret that they're now sharing with you doesn't necessarily mean that they've done anything wrong. And you should have a conversation about if an open marriage is right for you and how that would work. So what it sounds like with the way Michael purports his relationship with Kathleen is that they had this sort of open marriage and that she was aware and on board, which may or may not be true.
Gosh, I have lots of thoughts. I have questions.
It seems like he was real sneaky about it.
Yeah, wow. I need to.
Do you need a moment?
I guess I'm processing in my ignorance, the assumptions of how another person might feel who is bisexual based on my own bias of not being bisexual. Right. And so, in my thought process, and this, don't laugh at me and don't come at me. Just give me some grace, guys. Okay. I thought that just meant it opened the possibilities to both genders.
Sure.
Or all genders.
Sure. But if you're in a committed relationship, you would think
it would operate the same way as me saying I'm going to choose this one man.
Right.
But my sexual orientation is that I'm attracted to men, which means I am choosing to be committed.
Yes.
And forego all these other adorable hot men out there.
Sure.
Right? And so if I'm bisexual, I'm thinking I'm committing to you. You happen to be man or woman. And then I would say, so I'm foregoing all of these other women and men. Like, I have a feeling that's how it operates. So I guess my thought is I could see how somebody would assume that if you're coming out to me as bisexual after we've committed, then it's because you have a desire for something. You are being tempted outside the marriage.
Or they're just seeking to be authentic.
Honest. Right.
Right.
So I could see how somebody might feel like, okay, but what brought this up?
Right. Right.
How did you realize it?
Right. Well, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there was infidelity.
No, it may just be attraction that made them realize.
And yes. And so because you're my partner, I want to share that.
Share it.
Yeah.
And I think that's good.
I think is fine. And you know what people tend to, lots of heterosexual couples have open marriages.
Well, that's true too.
And I mean, so,
but that's my point. Why does it need to have an open marriage just because you realize you're bisexual?
Right.
You still made a commitment.
Right.
So I think that's my point, is that if you're bringing it up in the marriage.
Right.
And then the talk is open relationship.
Right.
I can see how that would feel very betraying to the other partner who is like, okay, great. You're attracted to men and women.
Right.
Fantastic. We still got married. We still have a commitment.
Right. And
to the person, it feels no different than saying, I'm just going to choose another woman.
Right. Right. Yeah. I can understand how it feels betrayal. And I think that's why they're saying that. You need to have an open conversation about what your expectations are, and not because of their bisexuality, but because of how do we both feel about fidelity and what does that mean? Does it not bother a wife if her husband's not sleeping with other women? And it's okay if he has occasional dalliances with men
because she can't provide that.
Right. And exactly. Whatever, yes. I don't, as long as everybody's on board, I don't care what anybody does in their marriage. But
I get it. I understand why they're saying that, but I like immediately you're like, wow, how would I react? And I guess, interesting. Like, it would feel I don't know. It would feel the same as saying, "Oh, I realize I'm attracted to this other woman."
Right.
And now I want to talk about an open marriage.
Right. Well, yeah. And if that's
maybe it doesn't feel the same for other people.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then it's an individual situation.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, just because a spouse comes out to you as bisexual doesn't necessarily mean that your relationship has to end.
Right.
It might mean a change. It might mean no change other than the fact that now everybody's being authentic.
Right. Right. And it may be something they realize later.
Right. And that's also, all of that is fine.
Right.
But what really, Psychology Alive has an article, Deception and the Destruction of Your Relationship. And that's really the crux of it.
Yes, it is. In this situation and with Staircase, it's absolutely.
The bisexuality isn't really the issue, even though they make it out to be this like dirty thing.
Oh, and I hate that.
He's bad because he's bisexual and that he's dirty and deviant and awful. And I'm like, his bisexuality doesn't make him a bad person.
No.
He's a bad person regardless of that.
Right. It's the deception around it.
Exactly.
It's the deviance of how he, expressed it, communicated it or not communicated it, whatever.
Right. This article states, whatever one's stance is on open versus closed relationships, the most painful aspect of infidelity is often the fact that someone is hiding something so significant from their partner. Two adults can agree on whatever the terms of their relationship they like, but the hidden violation of the agreement is what makes an act of betrayal and an affair unethical. Thus, the real villain behind infidelity isn't necessarily the affair itself, but the many secrets and deceptions built around the affair.
Said it.
Yeah,
that's it. And that is a fantastic paragraph.
Yes, and I was like, that is really the crux of it. Is that if she knew that he was bisexual and having these relationships, dalliances, they weren't really relationships. It was primarily sexual, with a little fun of planning.
Yeah.
The planning was part of the fun. If she knew about them, then maybe it was fine. But if she didn't know, that's really the deception. That's really the part that's harmful.
Yeah. The question isn't, did she know he was bisexual? The question is, did he know that he had other partners?
Right.
And, that's where it comes down to. Mm-hmm. And I can understand making a statement about society and stigma by the fact that he didn't feel comfortable, maybe. Maybe there's a question of how much stigma did he feel, how much societal shame based on his upbringing. Those years were definitely more open, but he was older, so he would have been formed by a far more strict society or closed-minded society. And so, I can see it making a statement about shame and how that might have caused him to keep it secret.
Right.
And then how that affected why or why not he told his wife.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
But I'm a little utilitarian in this. I admit that the outcome remains the same.
Well,
that there was deception. And so there are ways to handle it and there are ways not to handle it.
Right. Yeah. Get a qualified professional. Did she know? Really, this is the crux of the question.
Did she know?
Did she know? We can't know, unfortunately. He says she knew. We don't know that for sure. He's proven himself not always authentic and truthful. So,
and the way he lied about the Purple Heart suggests how he might have lied about this.
Right. That
she may have known he was bisexual. And she may have known even that he had a partner. Some sort of...
Right.
But she may not have known the degree.
Right.
Because pornography comes into play.
Right. Well, and, maybe she knew also that he was bisexual and looked at homosexual pornography, but didn't realize that he was having affairs.
Right. And the opposite could be true. She could have said, I approve of you having another partner because I see how that would be necessary for you, whatever. She could have understood a partner, but been very betrayed by the pornography.
Right. Either one could be true, or neither could be true, or both could be true. She could have known he was bisexual, but not known he looked at pornography or had a partner.
Right. Oh, get the Ouija board out. We got to talk to somebody. We have questions.
All of the sources that we use to inform our discussion here on Killer Fun Podcast can be found on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Killer Fun Podcast, exploring the intersection of crime and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Killer Fun Pod, or you can send us an email at killerfunpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share a link to whatever information you're looking for. We love to hear from you. You might learn a little something too. All right, real life. So on the whole bisexual thing, this is the last we're going to talk about it. Michael's brother, Bill, who was an attorney but did like elder law and things, I think.
Yeah, they said what he did. Now I can't remember.
I think it was elder law. He wasn't equipped to handle a criminal trial.
Right.
And he wouldn't have, even if he had been equipped, because he was too close to the situation. Mm-hmm. But Bill gave an interview to Dateline and insisted that Michael's orientation for both men and women was no secret, that he'd known it for years. And he thought that Kathleen must have known. about it, whether or not she knew about partners or pornography, that he was certain she must have known. But of course, it wasn't a time when people really talked about it that openly. Certainly not of people of that age.
Exactly.
So Bill added that even if she had discovered it, if it had been a deception, that the way he understood their relationship to be. Now, granted, they lived in North Carolina and he lived in Reno. He would have been surprised if they'd had an explosive argument about it. That he didn't ever see them as having violent tendencies at all.
Well, I mean, but Michael Peterson was so painfully boring that I can't imagine him responding with any kind of like excitement at all. Like, I can't imagine him, like building up the tenacity to do something like that. I mean, I feel like that's a lot of dull layers to go through.
Fair. The last time we spoke about this, we talked at length about blood spatter, yes, as you had mentioned. It's even less well regarded now than it was in 2019 when we talked about it. Tech Dirt had an article. Study shows blood pattern analysis is just more guesswork posing as scientific evidence. Now, we talked about how a lot of the people who go around being blood spatter experts have really had 40 hours of quote unquote training.
Yeah.
And that, there's a lot of things that they're not taking into account. Physiology, gravity. I mean, these are things that they're not taking into account that can cause it to be much more subjective than we think it ought to be. They talk about how the results are really open to interpretation. Forensic Science International had a study, says the lack of solid standards in the blood pattern analysis field have resulted in experts looking at the same blood patterns but all seeing something different. So a quote from that study, conclusions were often erroneous and often contradicted other analysts. The results show limited reproducibility of conclusions. So, sorry, Dexter.
You're not going to have a job anymore.
No. Differing opinions on blood spatter evidence can turn a suicide into a homicide or turn a killing from an act of self-defense to murder. There's actual freedom riding on these interpretations, so it's crucial that they be correct. And yet, no one in the field or in the court system seems too concerned about ensuring the evidence is correctly analyzed.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those that it shouldn't be everything in the case. Like, the blood spatter suggests that this scenario or this scenario are possible, not the blood spatter concludes XYZ.
Right. It feels like, okay, and this is my ignorance again with the law though, but it feels like maybe circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
But maybe one category less even?
Right. Like it seems like that coupled with murder weapons, coupled with motive, coupled with other things,
right,
might add to the case, but it shouldn't be the whole case,
right? Because like with circumstantial evidence, it's not the same thing as saying an analyst has provided a scientific report of evidence and being submitted that way,
right?
But like I can see how blood spatter for people who work crime scenes a lot have a little bit of a gut instinct, and maybe it's guesswork, but it's educated guesswork.
Right.
And they might be able to say something kind of, broad that helps them know where to start at least, even if they chase all trails, they kind of know, well,
right.
Let's put some resources here, and here. Right. But, I could see that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they didn't hardly even talk about the fact that the blood was largely dry.
Yeah.
I mean,
that would be of interest.
I wish they would have included that in this. Like, I wanted a little more forensic side of it, because there were so many interesting contradictory things that I think could have really moved this story along. I wish they would have included a little more of that.
Yeah, that would have helped.
It felt like they rushed past all that stuff, and I think they are not quite exactly sure who their audience is or ought to be.
Maybe that's true. I think I think that's true.
That you can tell a compelling story that's still fascinating to the non-true crime obsessed person, but still appeals to the mystery around this whole situation.
Agreed.
So last time we also talked about red neurons a bit.
Yes.
And so they didn't talk about it at all in the episode, but that's why I put it in the real life section, because I wanted to talk about this, because I found a really interesting, it's Reddit, so but take it for what it's worth. But this post about red neurons cites literature and stuff, so it's easy to go and find the sources.
Oh, good. Okay.
So, and I went and looked, but they put all the salient stuff in. So the user, I guess, is not. I don't know if it's ref underscore or if that's just they no longer have an account.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know exactly how Reddit works. But anyway, so this person, I can't give them credit because we don't have a username. The autopsy states that these red neurons imply that she, Kathleen, would have had to have been alive for a few hours after her brain injury, and the estimate was 2 hours. Now, we talked about this the last time, so that's why I wanted to touch on it again. So the brain can generally only develop red neurons when there's been a lack of blood for a significant amount of time. One book I found, Forensic Neuropathology, which said something very interesting. On page 119, it says, and this is a quote from the book, "In some circumstances, it appears that red neurons can evolve in as little as an hour or two, possibly slightly less. These circumstances seem to involve very acute ischemic episodes in previously healthy individuals, as in a suicide or accidental hanging with prompt rescue and attempted but failed resuscitation, acute cardiac arrest and attempted resuscitation, and then death within a known short interval." And later on in the book, it explicitly says the cerebral Purkinje cells, it appears that the development of red neuron occurs more rapidly than elsewhere within the brain. And that's where they were found in Kathleen Peterson. So the red neurons themselves, not necessarily as damning as we thought when we first covered this.
Yeah.
So if she fell and hit her head, which is what Michael purports.
Right.
Or an owl caught her. If she had some damage, was knocked out, maybe didn't breathe for a few minutes, and then kind of came to and gasped for breath, that could cause this more rapid onset of the red neurons in her brain.
Interesting.
Or if he had beat her and then realized she wasn't breathing and he was freaking out and trying to perform CPR and it was unsuccessful, that could also cause rapid red neurons to form. So it's damning and not.
Right.
Again,
yeah,
it's like
that's just.
And it's hard because you can't really perform studies on this. You can't create a situation where you're almost going to save somebody.
No.
I mean, it's unethical and immoral. So you have to rely on case studies.
Right.
Because you can't reproduce these things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but it's not quite the damning thing.
Yeah, we used to think more of it.
We used to think it was more specific as far as the conditions in which it happened.
Right.
And it just turns out that it's much more unpredictable.
Much more common.
Yeah, common and unpredictable than we thought.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Ah, gosh.
All right.
Move that again to the circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. But I always like to try and end on something a little funny, but there's not a whole lot funny here.
Definitely not.
So I'm going to talk about one more thing that wasn't in this first episode of the HBO series, but that we talked some about previously.
I know where you're going with this.
And it's the owl defense.
Oh my gosh, the owl defense. That was so fun.
when you hear it, the owl defense sounds ridiculous.
I know.
And utterly implausible. And then you read it and you're like, okay, well, it does make some more sense based on the wounds on her head. It definitely looks like it could have been a raptor of some sort that attacked her. And it would explain why there was contusions and blood loss, but no skull fractures or bruising to the brain whatsoever.
Right.
It's a whole thing.
I mean,
and they did find feathers.
They did. I mean, it is weird.
And of course, that thus far has been glossed over in the show.
Yeah, you don't get any of it in the...
Well, not in the first episode.
For sure.
I think it's coming, but I've only seen the first 5 episodes because the rest aren't out yet. So
it's just so silly. But I mean, sometimes it's, okay. I get it. Occam's razor, keep it simple, stupid, kind of. I get all of that. But then there's stories where you're like, well, you just can't make that up.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you can't make that up.
Right. But there's no way to prove it.
Nope.
Unfortunately. I wanted to know, how would this even happen? Well, it turns out owls are not smart. We have this like cultural
wise old owl thing.
Yes, exactly. It's a very cultural, and it's not even across all cultures. Some of them see them as bringing death, and some of them see them as wisdom. It's different throughout, but I was like, well, and we see them in Harry Potter, and they're smart and deliver,
right?
But those are magical owls. Wild explained. Are owls smart? Not really. And here's why. They're gifted in both sight and hearing. Because these senses are so heightened, they use about 75% of their brain capacity for sight and hearing. And only 25% of it is left for all other operations.
Wow.
They had a study that they did on a group of all different kinds of birds, and a group of owls was included, and it was a very easy test of intelligence. It's a string. Basically, you pull the string, you get a treat.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Simple.
And lots of birds who have never been exposed to pull the string, get a treat, figure it out. Only half of them in this study, 6 out of 12, were able to figure out this very simple test. Whereas most other birds, even the less intelligent ones, can figure it out most of the time.
Okay.
So,
all right, wait. Hot take. Ready? Hot take. Maybe the owls were so smart that they were like, no. No, I am not being trained. You're not going to train me like this. I am not going to get the little, no.
Okay.
Maybe.
I don't think you're right. Because they're not smart like people.
No, they're not.
Not even the smartest bird is smart like people.
No, I'm just kidding.
And they're very food motivated.
Yeah, they are extremely food motivated. I know. I'm just kidding. But like, I could just see, like, because owls have such a look.
You as an owl.
They have such a look that I could see them being like,
I refuse.
I'm sorry, Pavlov. It doesn't work with me.
I think you're thinking of cats and not birds.
Well, you're right. But I do think of owls as like the cats of the birds, right? Like,
no,
that's how I think of them. So that's just ridiculous. But yeah, but cats for sure. Trying to train a cat like that, it'd be like shove off.
Yeah, exactly. No. No. Owls are less smart than crows or ravens, and which are generally considered very smart birds. They're not as intelligent as eagles. All raptors tend to be on the less smart scale of birds as far as they go. But eagles are believed to be one of the smartest birds of prey, and owls are definitely on the lower end.
Yeah.
So,
they're super cute.
They are. They're adorable. They make horrible pets.
Oh, I love videos of them, though. Other people who have them as pets, like the little ones, and watching them dance or get pet. Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. And most people aren't able to keep them as pets.
Right,
in the United States, you have to have a license basically to be able to care for owls, and it's supposed to be a sanctuary situation. Either you're caring for owls that couldn't survive in the wild, or you're rehabilitating owls that have been injured with the intent of returning them to the wild at some point.
Yeah.
And they're entirely meat eaters, so there's a whole situation that comes with that, and they're picky about what they eat. So you have to
they are.
freeze chicks that have been hatched for a day specifically is what you feed captive owls, and then they tear it apart and they're messy. And then of course, because
the owl pellet.
Yes, they then regurgitate the owl pellets, and because all they eat is meat, their excrement is particularly foul. They're not a kind of pet you'd want in your house. And if you don't interact with them regularly every single day, they will become very aggressive, and they do have talons like razors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I leave that to people who have like a passion for the owls. Let them do that. But in high school, did you have to reconstruct the bones of the owl pellet?
No, we never got to do the owl pellet. And
yeah, that was actually, I think of that often because it was actually kind of fun. I mean, you do have to pick apart all of this stuff and then boil the bones, and then they're clean, and then you reconstruct them, and it looks like a little well, my owl had eaten a lizard.
Okay.
So mine looked like a dinosaur.
Oh, so cool.
Right? He looked like a T-Rex. It was so fun. Little arms and everything. And then you glue it together and you put it on the thing, and it looks like a little fossil. It's really kind of a great project.
Wow. No.
And that's the fun part. It's
right.
It's like a Kinder treat, right? Like you don't know.
Without the chocolate.
It's not chocolate, I promise.
Definitely not.
And, but you get to unwrap it. You don't know what they've eaten.
Yeah.
Until you put the bones together. And then you can tell.
That's kind of interesting.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
other people had chicks. You know, in the classroom. Other
right.
people had chicks. I had a couple people had like different sizes of lizard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah. Don't have an owl at home. They are not smart birds. And I never have to worry about that because we'll never have birds. My husband doesn't like birds.
Oh, okay. Well, I understand that. Birds are a very difficult pet.
They're dinosaurs.
Well, yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest.
Everything
doesn't taste like chicken. Everything descended from dinosaurs tastes like dinosaurs. I read that the other day and I'm like, I'm eating dinosaur tonight. Well, next time we are taking a little bit of a break. We're going to have outtakes episodes for you for a couple of episodes because we have exciting things going on. Jackie's graduating from Harvard.
Yay! Finally graduating.
Woo-hoo! She will have a master's degree in psychology, and we're entirely delighted and proud of her. And your work is well done and much deserving of reward and a break.
Well, you're very kind. I couldn't have done it without my family. And got me through and got me to the end, and I'm very excited to be done.
Yes.
I'm also excited to be graduating, but I'm also very excited to be done.
Yeah.
So if you ask me what's next, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, not for a while.
Don't ask me for a while.
Yeah. Well, that's to be determined later. Yeah, for now you're going to enjoy having, I don't know, actual downtime.
Actual vacation.
It's
going to be nice.
Yeah, for sure. And and my son's graduating from high school and there's all kinds of stuff going on. So we have some other things that we need to be focused on for a few weeks. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the Batman.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to, what did we say about the Batman who glitters because Robert Pattinson's in the Batman?
Yes.
He's the
glittery Batman?
What did we?
It's basic.
The vampire Batman?
Yeah, vampire Batman.
There we go.
That's it. That's what we said.
That's right. There we go.
Vampire Batman.
So vampire Batman when we return. And until next time, be safe, be kind, and wash your hands.
Da, da, da.